I think I'm done with comedy movies of 2016. Although, this movie did make me laugh. So the movie stars Sacha Baron Cohen, and I think I'm saying that right. If not, sorry. Mark Strong, Rebel Wilson, Penelope Cruz, and Isla Fisher. Now, let's get into it. So, you guys, the movie is pretty much about Mark Strong's character is an MI6 agent, and he hasn't seen his brother in 28 years, and there's a good reason for the huge gap in the absence of seeing each other, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to spoil the movie for you guys. But let's just keep it at that they haven't seen each other in 28 years, and eventually in the beginning of the film, the brother ends up finding the other brother, and so the difference is though their personalities and their lives has changed since they were younger in their youth, and so now the life of one of the brother messes with the other life of the other brother, and now it compromises his mission. And as you see in the trailer, things get messy and things start screwing up with the MI6 agents mission, and so then the other brother gets involved, and now both of them are involved in this chase, and pretty much MI6 Mark Strong's character. So his character ends up being chased down by his own organization for not, for pretty much not completing the mission that he was supposed to complete because of his brother's fault. So that is what this movie is about in a nutshell. Now let's get into the pros and cons of this movie. So let me get into the cons before we get into the pros. With comedy movies, I've been tending to do this a lot lately, where I go over the cons first and then the pros. But in this case, I wanted to get rid of the cons out of the way, because there are only two cons, in my opinion, throughout this movie, and that is that there are some random scenes that you could get rid of, and it would have been perfectly fine for the movie. It was just to add for comedic effect. And also, there are some sexually disturbing scenes in the movie, and I get why they put them in there, but I mean, it was for comedic effect, and they were funny, but kind of like, you wanted to look away, but for the joke, you wanted to look. So it was kind of like that back and forth throughout the whole movie. And that was really it, other than there's always cheesy jokes and bad dialogue and things like that. But most of all, this movie did what it was supposed to do, which most comedies have not been doing nowadays. So now let's go into the pros. So the pros were it had great action sequences, and I was very surprised by this. It even felt a little bit like Hardcore Henry, which comes out in a few months. So it felt like that to me in a way whenever they did the first-person action fighting sequences. Also, it was funny. It made me laugh. It did its job. Also, we're going to say that it had a good soundtrack. There were some scenes where they were going back and forth between the characters' backstory that it was good. The soundtrack fit the scene, whether it was trying to be comedy or dramatic and to explain the story, but it did a good job of doing it with the soundtrack and the way the characters acted it out. Also, that brings me to my point that it had good character development. As surprising for a movie as this is, some of you may not think that because they don't dwell on it, but because they even mentioned it and put it in there and kept going back and forth and not just went to it once, makes that character development that much better. And also, with that in mind, I gotta say, the acting was good too. For what it was, comedy movies these days are not good. That's just fact. It's like horror movies. Horror movies these days, you only get one or two rare good horror movies now. And that is what I feel like is happening with comedy these days. So, pretty much, you guys, all I can say about this movie is that the acting was great, the comedy was great, bad dialogue, and cheesy lines. Just, it was a mixture between bad and good, so for a comedy movie. So for me, you guys, I have to give this movie a terrible. I wish I could have liked it a little more, but going into this movie, I had low expectations, and I was right, in my opinion, once again, for a comedy movie like this. But to all the actors and actresses, they did a great job of what they were doing. So besides that, though, I give it a terrible. So thank you guys for watching. This is the Tempest Productions, and this was my movie review over the movie The Brothers Grimsby. Now, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.